My name is Alexander, and if I ever had any doubts about where I stood in my family, they vanished the day I found out about the will. It wasn't some dramatic sit-down moment where my parents broke the news to me themselves. No, I stumbled upon it entirely by accident, thanks to sheer dumb luck. It happened a few months ago when I was at their house, the same house I had been helping them keep for the past 6 years. I wasn't just covering the occasional grocery run, I was pitching in for the mortgage, fixing things up, making sure the place didn't fall apart. Meanwhile, my brother Eric? He did absolutely nothing. And when I say nothing, I mean exactly that. No job, no responsibilities, just lying around, waiting for life to hand him everything on a silver platter. And apparently, my parents were more than happy to oblige. That day, I was helping my dad with some paperwork because, as usual, neither of them could be bothered to figure it out themselves. He asked me to scan a bunch of legal and financial documents, and I didn't think much of it, until I saw it. A folder labeled Estate Plan and Last Will and Testament, sitting right there in the stack. Now, I'm not the type to snoop, but curiosity got the better of me. After all, I was the one making sure they had a roof over their heads. It wasn't unreasonable to wonder how things were set up for the future. So, I opened it. And that's when I saw the words that made my stomach drop. Everything, and I mean everything, was going to Oscar. The house. Their savings. Their assets. Not a single mention of me, except for a couple of generic lines about how they loved both of their sons equally. Yeah, right. Equally. That's why their golden child was set to inherit it all while the son actually keeping them afloat wasn't even worth a footnote. I felt like an idiot. Here I was, bending over backward to make sure their bills were paid, that they never had to stress about food, while they sat back and planned for a future where I got absolutely nothing. And Oscar? He wasn't just lazy, he was entitled. Never lifted a damn finger to help, never contributed a dime, yet somehow convinced them he deserved it all. Maybe it was because he was the younger son. Maybe because they'd always babied him. Or maybe he just knew exactly how to manipulate them. Whatever the reason, their choice had been made. I sat there, staring at the paper, my hands shaking from a mix of anger and betrayal. How long had they planned this? Had they always seen me as nothing more than their financial safety net? Did they even appreciate anything I did for them? I had no idea how much time had passed before my dad finally noticed I wasn't scanning anything. "Hey, Alexander, what's taking so long?" he asked, walking back into the room. I didn't even try to hide it. I held up the will and looked him straight in the eye. "So, this is how it is?" I said, my voice eerily calm. "Everything to Oscar? After everything I've done for you?" For a moment, his face went pale. But then he sighed, like I was just some kid throwing a tantrum. "Alexander, it's not what you think." "Oh, really?" I snapped. "Because it looks pretty damn clear to me. I've been paying your mortgage, buying your groceries, fixing up the house while Oscar does nothing, and you still decided he's the only one who matters?" Dad shifted uncomfortably, but instead of actually explaining himself, all he muttered was, "It's complicated." That was it. No apology. No justification beyond those two empty words. Just a weak excuse and that expectant look, like he was waiting for me to drop it and go back to being their personal ATM. I should have walked out right then and there. But I needed to hear it from both of them. So I called out for my mom. When she came in and saw the will in my hands, she at least had the decency to look guilty. But the words that came out of her mouth made my blood boil. "Alexander, honey, you don't need the inheritance," she said gently, like she was doing me some kind of favor. "You have a good job, you're independent. Oscar, well, he struggles. We just want to make sure he's taken care of." And that was the moment something inside me snapped. They weren't clueless. They weren't unaware of what they were doing. No, They had made this decision with full intent, and in their minds, it was completely justified. They had spent years enabling Oscar's laziness, and now they were rewarding it, handing him everything while I got tossed aside like an afterthought. I took a slow, deep breath, clenched my jaw, and set the will down on the table. "Got it," I said, my voice eerily calm. "Glad to know where we stand." Then I turned and walked out, ignoring their protests as I slammed the door behind me. They had made their decision. Now, it was time for me to make mine. I didn't go back after that. I didn't call. I didn't check in. For the first time in years, I let them handle their own problems. If something in the house broke, they could fix it. If they needed groceries, they could figure it out. And most importantly, when that mortgage bill showed up, I wasn't the one paying it anymore. The silence lasted about 2 weeks. At first, I think they assumed I was just pouting, that I'd come crawling back like always. Maybe they thought I'd cool off and apologize for daring to question their decision. But when the days kept passing with no word from me, and, more importantly, no financial help, you could practically feel the shift in their attitude. Then, one afternoon, my phone buzzed. Dad texted, "The property taxes are due." That was it. No "Hey, how have you been?" No "Sorry for what happened." No "We appreciate everything you've done." Just a cold, transactional message, like I was still the walking wallet they could tap into whenever they pleased. I stared at the screen for a moment, almost amused at how predictable they were. They really thought they could just demand money, like nothing had happened? That I'd keep playing my part as their financial safety net, even after they made it clear I was disposable? I calmly typed back. "I'm sure Oscar will handle it, since the house is his and all." It took exactly 5 minutes before my mom called. I let it ring. Then another text came through. Mom texted, "Alexander, please don't be like this. We need to talk." Oh, now they wanted to talk. Now that the bills were piling up and reality was slapping them in the face. I waited an hour before replying. "There's nothing to talk about. You made your choice. Now you can live with it." I figured that would be the end of it for the day. I had made my stance crystal clear, and there wasn't a single part of me that felt guilty about it. But then Oscar decided to chime in. His text came in late that evening. The second I saw his name pop up, I already knew it was going to be something obnoxious. Sure enough, when I opened it, I was greeted with pure entitlement. Oscar texted, "Dude, why are you being such a drama queen? It's not a big deal. Just help them out like you always do." I almost laughed. Not a big deal? He was really acting like I had no right to be mad about this? I typed back. "No, I think you've got it covered. Since you're the favorite and all." A few minutes later, he replied. Oscar texted, "Oh my God, are you seriously mad about the will? Grow up, man. It's just money." Oh, now it was just money. Now that it was his to inherit, suddenly it didn't matter. The hypocrisy was astounding. I shot back. "Then you won't mind using some of that money to pay the mortgage, right?" Silence. A few minutes later, my mom texted me again, this time, going full guilt trip mode. Mom texted, "Alexander, we're your parents. Family takes care of each other. We did so much for you growing up, and now you're just abandoning us." I had to take a deep breath to stop myself from throwing my phone across the room. Abandoning them? I had spent years making sure they never struggled, all while they coddled Oscar and rewarded his laziness. And now that they finally had to deal with the consequences of their own decisions, I was the bad guy. I wasn't falling for it. Not this time. I responded. "You made it clear I wasn't part of the family when you left me out of the will. Now Oscar can take care of you." I could practically hear my mom gasping dramatically at that. She always did have a flair for acting like the victim, even when she was the one in the wrong. Later that night, my dad sent another text, one that had me seething. Dad texted, "We're not asking for much. Just enough to cover the mortgage for a few more months until we figure things out. Don't be selfish." Selfish. That word made my blood boil. I had spent years bailing them out, sacrificing my own money, time, and energy to make their lives easier. I had done everything a good son was supposed to do. And how did they repay me? By making sure I got nothing in return. And now, the moment I finally stood up for myself, I was the selfish one. I clenched my jaw, took a slow breath, and typed back. "No. I'm done." Then I turned off my phone. They had made their choice. Now, they were going to live with it. The silence lasted a day. I knew my parents wouldn't give up that easily. But even I wasn't expecting what happened next. The next morning, I woke up to a notification on my phone. A bank transfer request. I frowned, unlocking my phone. It was from my mom. She had actually sent me a request for money, like I was some kind of ATM. The amount? $5,000. I stared at it in disbelief, half laughing at the audacity. No message. No explanation. Just a cold, shameless demand for the exact amount they needed to cover their overdue mortgage. They weren't even asking anymore. They were just assuming I'd cave. I declined it without hesitation. Not even 5 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Mom. I let it ring. Then, another text. Mom texted, "Alexander, I know you saw the request. Why did you decline it?" I took my time before replying. "Because it's not my responsibility. Try Oscar." Another call. Declined. Another text. Mom texted, "We're going to lose the house if you don't help us." Oh, now it was an emergency. After years of treating me like a walking wallet, now they were finally facing the consequences. I typed back. "Maybe you should have thought about that before deciding I didn't matter." A few seconds later, Dad chimed in. Dad texted, "You're really going to let your parents become homeless?" That one actually made me laugh out loud. The manipulation was so blatant, it was almost funny. They weren't broke. They weren't about to be thrown on the streets. They just didn't want to dip into their own savings, because they were so used to me covering everything. I ignored them for the rest of the day. That night, I got a text from Oscar. Oscar texted, "Dude, just send them the money already. You're making this a bigger deal than it is." I clenched my jaw. This entitled little prick really thought he could lecture me? I typed back. "You mean the same money you're inheriting? Why don't you send it?" His response came fast. Oscar texted, "You know I don't have that kind of cash right now." Oh. So now it was about affordability. He was perfectly fine with me draining my accounts, but the second it was his turn, suddenly, he had nothing to offer. I replied. "Guess you better figure it out, then, bro. You're the one they chose." No response. I went to bed feeling oddly at peace, like I had finally broken free from years of manipulation. But the next day? Things escalated. Hard. I was at work when I got a call from my apartment's front desk. "Hey, Alexander, your parents are here." I nearly dropped my phone. "What?" The receptionist hesitated before adding, "They're saying it's an emergency. And that you won't answer their calls." Oh. My God. They actually showed up at my apartment just because I stopped paying their bills? I took a deep breath, pinching the bridge of my nose. "Please don't let them up. I'm not expecting them." There was an awkward pause. They're being kind of pushy." I clenched my jaw. I don't care. They can leave. I hung up. Immediately, a text from Mom. Mom texted, "We're downstairs. Open the door." No question. No explanation. Just another demand. I didn't reply. Another text. Mom texted, "Alexander, we're not leaving until you talk to us." I exhaled sharply, standing up from my desk. They weren't going to back down. Fine. I was about to teach them a lesson they wouldn't forget. I grabbed my keys and stormed downstairs, my blood boiling. I wasn't scared. I was furious. The sheer audacity of these people, to show up at my home, uninvited, demanding money like I was their personal ATM. Not even a phone call first. Not even a half-hearted apology. Just a full-on ambush. They really thought they could corner me into submission like I was some naive little kid? I yanked the door open, and there they were. Mom. Dad. And, of course, Oscar. All standing in a tight little formation like they were about to stage some family intervention. Mom had her arms crossed, her classic disappointed mother look locked and loaded. Dad stood stiff, hands in his pockets, his expression a mix of frustration and entitlement, like he couldn't believe I was actually making him do this in person. And Oscar? That little leech had the nerve to look bored. Like this whole situation was just mildly inconvenient for him. Like he wasn't the reason any of this was happening. The moment Mom saw me, she went full theatrics. "Alexander, finally. We need to talk." I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "No. You need to leave." She blinked. Like she physically couldn't comprehend what I just said. "Excuse me?" "You heard me." My voice was calm. Controlled. But firm. "You don't get to just show up at my apartment demanding money. That's insane." Dad let out a sharp scoff. "Are you really going to let us lose the house over a petty grudge?" I let out a cold laugh. "Petty grudge?" I tilted my head. "Oh, you mean the one where you decided I was good enough to pay your bills but not good enough to be in your will? That grudge?" Mom gasped, clutching her chest like I had just slapped her. "Alexander. That's not fair. We only did what we thought was best for the family." I raised an eyebrow. "Best for the family? You mean best for Oscar? Just say it." Silence. A long, heavy silence. Oscar, who had been weirdly quiet up until now, finally spoke up. "Look, man, I don't even want to be involved in this. I didn't ask for anything." I turned to him, finally letting loose. "No, you just sit back and take everything that's handed to you. You're 28 years old, Oscar. Get a damn job." His face turned red. "Dude, what the hell?" I took a step closer. "You heard me. You wanna inherit the house? Start acting like a homeowner. You wanna be the golden child? Start paying their damn bills. I'm done being your personal bank." Oscar looked away, suddenly very interested in the pavement. Mom took a deep breath, recalibrating her guilt trip. "Alexander, he's your brother." I nodded. "Yep. And I've supported him longer than you ever have." Dad's face darkened. "You're being selfish." I laughed. A real, genuine laugh. "Oh, that's rich. Coming from you." I gestured between them. "You two decided Oscar deserved everything and I deserved nothing. And now that it's time to pay the price for that choice, you're trying to manipulate me into fixing it for you. Not happening." Mom's voice sharpened. "We thought you'd be mature about this." I raised an eyebrow. "Mature? You mean quietly accept that I was betrayed and keep paying your bills? Because let's be real, that's what you wanted." Dad stepped forward, trying to loom over me like he used to when I was a kid. Alexander, we raised you. We fed you, clothed you, gave you everything. The least you can do is help us now. I looked him dead in the eye. I already did. For years. And you repaid me by cutting me out. Mom's lip trembled. We thought you'd understand. I exhaled, shaking my head. Oh, I understand. I understand perfectly. I looked between them, my voice steady. I understand that I was never family to you. Just a paycheck. Silence. Again. A suffocating, undeniable silence. I turned to Oscar, who was still pretending to be invisible. And you? What's your excuse? You had years to grow up, to get your life together, to contribute. But you didn't, because you knew they'd take care of you. And when they're gone, you just expected me to step in, huh? Oscar finally snapped. What do you want me to say, man? I didn't ask for this. I nodded slowly. Right. You didn't ask. You just benefited. His mouth opened. Then closed. Nothing. He had nothing. Mom tried one last guilt trip. Alexander, we're family. Family takes care of each other. I stared at her for a long moment before answering. Exactly. So why didn't you take care of me? She froze. No words. No comeback. Nothing. I let out a slow breath, feeling lighter than I had in years. We're done here. I turned and walked back inside, closing the door behind me. By the time I made it back to my couch, my phone buzzed with a new text. From Dad. Wow. After everything we've done for you, you're really going to abandon us? I smirked, typing back. No. You abandoned me. I'm just finally accepting it. I hit send. Then I blocked their numbers. But I had no idea that blocking them was only going to make things worse. Less than a day later, things started to spiral. At first, I thought my parents were just being dramatic. I mean, that was their go-to move, airing out family drama for everyone to see. But the longer I scrolled through their Facebook feeds, the more I realized this wasn't just about me not helping with bills anymore. They were spinning the narrative. The posts were disguised as sentimental, family love rants, but they were thinly veiled shots at me. Mom posted something about how she didn't raise her son to be so selfish and how true family helps each other no matter what. A few of her friends commented things like, "Wow, some kids are so ungrateful these days. I'm so sorry you're going through this. Stay strong. He'll regret this one day." Then Dad chimed in with his own post. "So-called family should never turn their back when you need them most. We gave everything to our children, and this is how we're repaid. My son, who should be helping us in our golden years, has chosen to abandon us." He tagged me. And added a passive-aggressive, "I hope you're happy." But the real kicker? Oscar. I should have known he'd jump on the drama train. He shared a post that was brimming with falsehoods. Some people think family is just about money. They don't understand that family is about love and sacrifice. I'd do anything for my parents, but some people just don't get that. They're too wrapped up in themselves to realize that true love is about helping those who raised you. And then, the final dagger. I wish some people could learn what it really means to be family. I love my parents, and I'm grateful for everything they've done. That was it. That was my breaking point. I sat there, staring at the screen in disbelief. How had it come to this? They turned the entire situation around. Made me the villain. The selfish son who wasn't willing to support his sacrificial parents. The son who didn't appreciate all the love they gave me over the years. How could they? I had always been the one who worked hard. The one who contributed. The one who never complained. And somehow, they had convinced themselves that they were the victims. That I was the problem. I didn't want to react immediately. I took a step back, collected my thoughts, and waited for a few hours. I wanted to make sure I didn't just lash out in anger. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized something. I couldn't just let them get away with this. If they were going to drag my name through the mud, I was going to set the record straight. So I pulled out my phone. I opened Facebook. And I started typing. I kept my Facebook account limited to close friends and real family, the ones who actually cared about me. And then, I posted a lengthy update. I wasn't interested in playing their game. I didn't want to get bogged down in petty back and forths. What I wanted to do was tell the truth. This is what I wrote. Asterisk, I know I've been quiet the past couple of days, but I can't stay quiet any longer. My family has been posting a lot about me online, things that simply aren't true. They've painted me as the villain, the selfish one who refuses to help his parents in their time of need. So, I'm here to set the record straight. I have always helped my family. From the moment I could get a job, I was the one pitching in, helping with bills, buying groceries, supporting them in every way I could. But there comes a point where you can't keep giving without being respected. Over the years, I watched my parents favor Oscar. He got everything, the house, the money, the attention. Meanwhile, I was just expected to keep giving without ever being considered equal. I'm sure some people reading this might think, well, that's just how family works. But here's the truth, family should be a two-way street. When I found out that my parents left everything to Oscar in their will, it hit me, this relationship was never about love or fairness. It was about what I could do for them. They didn't even consider me. Not for a moment. They've made it clear, I'm the one they can count on when things get rough, but never the one they actually want around unless it's convenient. For years, I've funded their lifestyle. Paid for vacations. Chipped in for bills. Helped cover house taxes. And for what? To be treated like a backup plan? I'm done. I am not just some wallet they can tap into whenever they need it. I'm a human being, and I deserve respect. I've earned the right to be treated like I matter, not just when they need something from me. And as for Oscar? It's time for him to grow up. He's 28 years old and has never worked a day in his life. Never taken responsibility for anything. My parents have enabled him for so long, it's no surprise he's their favorite. But here's the thing, he's had plenty of time to get his life together. Now, it's time for him to stand on his own 2 feet. To everyone watching this drama unfold and blindly supporting my parents, you need to understand, there are 2 sides to every story. Yes, family is important. But family is also about mutual respect. I have given enough for a lifetime, and I'm not apologizing for finally taking a step back. This isn't me turning my back on family. This is me finally choosing myself. And to my parents, I wish you the best. But I am done being your doormat. Asterisk. I hit post. And instantly, I felt relief. For the first time in my life, I was telling the world the truth, about my family, about how they had used me for years, about how I was never more than a safety net for them. I wasn't going to let them control the narrative anymore. And the reactions? They came fast. People I hadn't talked to in years reached out, cousins, family friends, even distant relatives. Some just liked the post, but others sent private messages saying, "I'm so sorry you went through this." I had no idea. It felt freeing. For once, my story was being heard, not buried under guilt trips and manipulation. But then? The backlash hit. My parents and Oscar went ballistic. Oscar messaged me. "You're a traitor. You really had to air all our business like this?" You have no respect for family. Dad called, practically yelling into the phone. You've ruined everything, Alexander. You'll regret this. You'll regret cutting us off. You'll regret turning your back on your own family. But you know what? I didn't regret it. Not for a second. I blocked them all. I was done. And for the first time in my life, I was free. Free from their toxic grip. Free from the endless expectations. Free from being treated as less than. As the days passed, I could feel the weight lifting. I was done fixing everyone else's problems. Now, I finally had the freedom to live my own life, on my own terms. So no, I don't feel bad for cutting them off. I deserve better. I still do. And from now on, I'm choosing to surround myself with people who appreciate me, for who I am, not for what I can give them. It's time to move forward. For good. And I will.